Jennifer, reflect from nursing home.
How you doing? My name's Dr. Lee.
Your autism.
As a nation, crossed into new territory tonight as the marker of how this pandemic has changed this country reaches a stark and difficult to fathom high. We have now lost over 100,000 Americans, and in this area, sadly, the United States leads the world. The increase in deaths from early March until now has been relentless, startling in its speed. 100,000 people gone in fewer than 100 days. Some of what we heard from the president as the virus was claiming more and more victims.
Are there words about a pandemic at this point?
No, we're not at all, and we have it totally under control.
Looks like by April, you know, in theory, when it gets a little warmer, it miraculously goes away. I hope that's true.
We're finding very little problem. Now, you treat this like a flu. When you have 15 people, and the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to zero, it's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
The Democrats are politicizing the coronavirus. This is their new hoax.
It will go away. Just stay calm.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the response to this crisis?
I'd rate it a 10.
President Trump's back and forth with governors about how and when they will reopen their states has taken another turn this morning. After telling governors, quote, they call the shots, the president is now encouraging some states to, quote, liberate. His calls on Twitter are coming even though they're abiding by his administration's own guidelines.
As protesters in various states rallied against stay-at-home orders, President Trump backed their calls. In a series of tweets, he exclaimed, liberate Minnesota, Michigan, and Virginia.
These are people expressing their views. I see where they are, and I see the way they're working. They seem to be very responsible people to me.
Economy doesn't bounce back before the election, there are concerns the party and President Trump could face defeat.
According to many public health officials and experts and scientists, is that he's not necessarily taking what Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx are telling him about the consequences here. In fact, he's much more motivated to fix the economy, to get the stock market back up, to stave off devastating unemployment that the administration is bracing for in April, and in so doing, try to rescue his own chances for re-election.
States, it's now
clear the lack of public health restrictions and reopening the economy too soon is killing people. New cases are surging in multiple states. In Florida, it's situation critical. More than 10,000 new positive cases of COVID-19 were reported today, and more than 112 people died. As Jackson Protzko reports, it's going to get worse because intensive care wards are flooded with sick people.
Florida's hospitals are in critical condition, facing wave after wave of COVID-19 patients, stretching ICUs beyond capacity at more than 50 hospitals.
For the second time in a week, Texas hospitalized more than 10,000 virus patients. What has officials worried is the lack of ICU beds across the state.
The synchronized sound of ventilators is an eerie reminder of how dangerous this virus is. Doctors and nurses battling an enemy that often has the upper hand.
We're in the ICU. There are roughly about 20 patients here. They're all on ventilators. The doctor that runs this particular unit has told me that. And the chances of them getting off the ventilator and getting out of this unit they're not good.
More than 1,100 people in South Texas are hospitalized with coronavirus. In this region, new cases are up nearly 70% from 2 weeks ago. 140 of them are inside this hospital. Juana Prieto is one of the emergency room patients diagnosed with coronavirus and pneumonia after her 35-year-old daughter died from COVID-19 nearly 2 weeks ago. Now both her and her husband are fighting the virus.
He wanted to be here with me because he said we're probably not going to see each other no more.
Why do you think that? He's scared he's going to die? Are you scared of that?
We all try our best to keep everybody healthy and alive. And when it's out of our hands, it's out of our control, we sometimes feel helpless.
How do you deal with that?
We cry, we talk to each other, we embrace each other and try to be the best that we can.
This is real.
Very real.
When you do testing to that extent, you're going to find more people, you're going to find more cases. So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please.
From home, she started to document. By day 3, she was hospitalized where she works.
Oh my God, this is no joke. I am so uncomfortable. My fever just broke, so I'm a little bit better. Fever of 104.6.
On the 5th day,
I feel horrible. Like so bad, like almost like I'm not gonna make it.
Later in the day, she was struggling just to talk.
I can't even move without being short of breath. Just cry. But I'm okay. Not sure what day it is. But I'm not getting better yet.
Pamela posted 5 more videos, but she didn't speak.
56-year-old Pamela Orlando died.
Can't be near your loved one towards the end where you can't say goodbye. You may on the phone, but if they're on a ventilator sedated and you can't be there, there's no saying goodbye. And that's probably one of the hardest things is it's a lonely death for somebody. I can't imagine what was going through his mind, seeing people in hazmat suits coming in and out when he was delirious and not feeling well, and his lungs were filling up and on pain meds. It's unfathomable to think.
I've seen more crying doctors and nurses in the last 2 weeks than I remember in my career because of the stress that this places on them, watching families have to be at a distance and patients being alone. Family members are telling me things to tell their loved one that they should be able to say themselves.
I said, can you have the chaplain say the Shema? They'll know. And I said, they'll know what to do.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
The whole situation really just makes you feel like you're being robbed of not being able to hug your loved ones, you know, or be with them, or talk about, you know, share stories about our grandmother together.
I've been watching that for the last week on television. Body bags all over, in hallways. I've been watching them bring in trailer trucks, freezer trucks. They're freezer trucks because they can't handle the bodies. There's so many of them. This is essentially in my community in Queens, New York. I've seen things that I've never seen before. I mean, I've seen them, but I've seen them on television in faraway lands. I've never seen them in our country. Elmhurst Hospital. I mean, when I see the trucks pull up, and they're pulling up to take out bodies, and you look inside and you see the black body bags, you say, what's in there? It's Elmhurst Hospital? Must be supplies. It's not supplies, it's people. I've never seen anything like it. I don't take responsibility at all.
I want to read you some new reporting in the Washington Post that goes straight to that point. CNN political analyst Josh Dawsey shares the byline of the story. Quoting now, the goal is to convince Americans that they can live with the virus. White House officials also hope Americans will grow numb to the escalating death toll and learn to accept tens of thousands of new cases a day, according to 3 people familiar with the White House's thinking.
The Bible. I love the Bible.
The Bible. The Bible. The Bible. The Bible.
Lord, you have your hand on this man, and I thank you for it. Lord, I thank you that he's fearless. I thank you that he's fearless and he's courageous. And I thank you for the boldness that you have. Yes, you are bold. And this comes from the Lord. This comes from God. He has created.
It goes through air, Bob. That's always tougher than the touch. You know, the touch, you don't have to touch things, right? But the air, you just breathe the air, and that's how it's passed. And so that's a very tricky one. That's a very delicate one. It's also more deadly than your strenuous flus. This is more deadly. This is 5 per. This is 5% versus 1% and less than 1%. So this is deadly stuff. Well, I think, Bob, really, to be honest with you,
sure, I want you to.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Look, let's talk about what this really is. This is a kind of homicidal negligence. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people have lost their lives because the president put his own re-election interest in front of the safety, health, and well-being of the people of the United States.
This is their new hoax.
Stunning, and I think we all need to take a deep breath and understand exactly what it is we have learned. We are listening to the President of the United States on tape, deliberately undermining the security of the national security of the United States, the health and well-being of the people of the United States, and he's doing this knowingly, in real time. It is the smoking gun of his negligence. Instead of leveling with the country, he covers up. We listen to him cover up this grave national emergency. This is one of the great presidential felonies of all time, maybe the greatest presidential felony, and we have the smoking gun tape of the president committing the felony. And calling in the Republicans and saying, well, what about this? What happened here? What did this president do that is captured on these tapes that are even more devastating than Nixon's tapes?
Now it is Latin America's turn to face the pain of the COVID-19 storm that spread west across the globe. In Brazil, the health service is ill-prepared. In truth, it's already overwhelmed. They know this. They can't fight this virus. They're digging thousands upon thousands of graves in the city of Sao Paulo. More than 13,000 are planned.
Vão morrer gente? Vai morrer gente.
E daí? Lamento, quer que faça o quê?
Now in Brazil, the pandemic is one of the world's most severe, and health workers there have now urged the International Criminal Court to investigate President Bolsonaro's government, accusing it of crimes against humanity over its handling of coronavirus.
Involuntary manslaughter, it involves somebody who acts in a grossly negligent way, or they have a duty to act and they fail to act, and that failure is a product of gross negligence. Donald Trump satisfies that element in both of those ways. And then the second element is your grossly negligent conduct was reasonably likely to result in serious bodily injury or death to another. And then the third element is, and thereby you caused the death of another. And let me tell you folks, Donald Trump is, in a very real sense, chasing us all out into the danger zone, exposing people prematurely against medical advice, against public health experts' advice, and putting them in harm's way, putting them in the way of this virus, causing them to suffer serious bodily injury and yes, even death. That's why what Donald Trump is doing is involuntary manslaughter.
My dad, Mark Anthony Urquiza, should be here today, but he isn't. He had faith in Donald Trump. He voted for him, listened to him, believed him and his mouthpieces when they said that coronavirus was under control and going to disappear, that it was okay to end social distancing rules before it was safe, and that if you had no underlying health conditions, you'd probably be fine. So in late May, after the stay-at-home order was lifted in Arizona, my dad went to a karaoke bar with his friends. A few weeks later, he was put on a ventilator, and after 5 agonizing days, he died alone in the ICU with a nurse holding his hand. My dad was a healthy 65-year-old. His only pre-existing condition was trusting Donald Trump, and for that, he paid with his life.
The other thing is there are some cases where you can almost prove that Donald Trump himself caused the death. Here's how I say that. woman who was interviewed about the death of her father. And she said, my father was just a die-hard Trump supporter, watched Fox News every night. He ran a bar. And when things started to break bad in New York, said, look, sweetheart, Donald Trump tells me there's nothing to worry about. And Fox News tells me there's nothing to worry about. This thing is a hoax. It's not a big deal. Caught the coronavirus and died. That's a man who articulated that he was making his day-to-day life decisions based on the advice that Donald Trump was giving him. That ups the ante. There are people out there who actually bought into it's going to disappear like a miracle. We're going to go from 15 to 0 cases. You don't need to wear a mask. Look at me, I don't wear a mask. The mountain of evidence we could assemble that demonstrates how people were making their life decisions based on Trump's advice. Been advocating for both a Nuremberg-like approach to criminal prosecutions come January and the Truth and Reconciliation-like commission that accomplishes both things that I think we need to accomplish if we're going to heal and rebuild our country and hold the criminals accountable.
He has no conscience. And let's be clear, no conscience. And this is really hard for us to understand. So he doesn't make a distinction between right or wrong, nor does he feel a distinction between right or wrong. So when he is inventing stories and lies and a reality that is of his own making, he's doing it without any shame or guilt. And that is an enormous advantage in a situation where most people would be limited by their respect for the truth and by their concern for how they were going to have an impact on others. He doesn't care. The deaths, I know this is extreme, the deaths don't matter to him. If it's a decision between saving himself and saving others, it is no contest.
Never in my life did I ever think that I would be fighting for my bread. Please do not put your families at risk. It is not worth it. Put your masks on. I'm not ready. Nobody could ever be ready for this.